waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me feel make it last forever. Stop in time, yeah, I'm surrendering. Hold tight, chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me feel
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and however you may identify it, early this morning. But how are you all doing? I'm not expecting too many people to be here, as it's quite early in the morning for the UK time. It's quite late or early, depending on your perspective, I suppose, if you've gone to bed, if you haven't gone to bed over in the States as well. So I wanted to talk about Superman because I've seen so many people on the right actually be going out of their way to one, misrepresent what's going on, and two, just anger for it for some reason. Now, if this was actually Clark Kent that we were talking about when we're talking about Superman, I could and I would actually understand the reasoning behind it. I actually really would, because we'd be taking an old character, how much that he loves Lois Lane, and completely and utterly flipping all of, 50, 60, almost 70 years of established storyline on its head and transferring that to a new story just to fit a narrative. So I would get it if it was Clark Kent. I do understand it. But my main issue is that it's not Clark Kent. It's not Clark Kent that's Superman in this alliteration. It's actually a Jonathan John Kent, believe it or not. Yeah, so Clark Kent named his son after his dad, obviously. And everything seems to have changed a little bit from that. So I'm not really sure on what the main sort of problems are on this one. So hopefully later on we get a couple more people turn up and maybe we can have a little bit of discussion and find out what's going on that aspect of things. But generally, at the moment, I don't really expect too many people to turn up. I don't really expect too many people to even make comments on this for the moment. They probably won't even make any comments on the video at all until after it's finished and been able to circulate and so on and so forth. But I just felt that it's a interesting topic that really needs to be broached. And if you can hear anything that sounds a bit like moaning in the background, for some reason my cat has decided to break into my little studio. So it's the cat, believe it or not. I mean, I know that I've said it now, so people are going to look out for it, but yeah, it's definitely the cat. Honest. Right. So let's have a look at the actual major problem or the major issue that stems from this for some reason. Very sorry about that. That's for something later on, but we will get back to that because, of course, there'd be adverts on it. But anyway, it's been a while since I've actually streamed, everyone. So yes, we'll get there. But let's actually get to the story. So let's share the story, and we want to have that one first. So the Daily Mail and many other news outlets, news providers have produced this story of coming out and saying, now Superman comes out as bisexual. DC comic reveals superhero son of Clark Kent and Lois Lane will start a romance with male best friend 2 months after Robin come out as bi. I just want to take a little second to let that sink in. So, just from the title, we have the son of Clark Kent and Lois Lane. So, we know it's not the real Superman, right? We know this isn't the real Superman. This is the latest iteration of Superman. It's Jonathan Kent, and he has a different story. He's fighting for different causes. It's a different comic book. So let's read the synopsis, shall we? So DC Comics announce the news on Monday, which is National Coming Out Day, which, yeah, I admit, it's obviously fortuitous, and most people would assume that it's kind of a gimmick. But from listening to what the actual author has talked about and has written, it doesn't actually seem to be any sort of kind of gimmick. It kind of seems that the new author that's taken over from Australia has actually wanted to move Jonathan Kent or John Kent into a new foreground, having new stories, new challenges, trying to make Superman more realistic, trying to make Superman more fight the good fight, so to speak. Now, you could argue that you would disagree with some of the storylines on what side of the fence that a Superman should be on. And I think that's all part of the comic books and all part of the idea of being able to talk about comic books, that you want to discuss it. But overall, the idea of Superman coming out as actually bi being a bad thing is really interesting to me, and I really want to know why people actually think that. So hopefully later on we'll get a couple of people in, and maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion, hopefully. But we shall see. So the company revealed that Jonathan John Kent, who's obviously not Clark, who took over the Superman title from his father Clark, will soon start dating close friend Jay Nakamura. Now, there is actually a story that goes along with how these two have got a little bit closer. And for anybody that knows anything about people that are bisexual and people that have that sort of inkling, or even people that are just exploring in general, that don't really know themselves and exploring in general, the actual storyline itself is reminiscent and almost true to life of how people that are exploring themselves or don't even know about themselves enough to be able to say what the side of the fence, if you want to put it that way, they fall on, would actually work. It's not just a case of, oh, they just threw it in there. There's actually storylines that have been built up to it, to how and why these two guys have come to this type of a feeling. It's not just go, it's close to the day of National Coming Out Day, so to hell with it, we're just going to make him bi. No, there's actually a storyline behind it. And it's an inclusive storyline that has been happening since the beginning of this new iteration of the actual comic book that we're talking about, which is The Son of Kalel, which was first released in July of this year. So I've just read the third point, basically, which is that it was several woke issues and so on and so forth. But let's read the fourth. The 17-year-old, because remember that he is only 17 in this iteration of history. So Jonathan John Kent is 17 years old. He's fought wildfires, protested deportation of refugees, and helped to stop high school shootings. Now, a lot of people would look and go, but that's not Superman. It's like, yes, you're right. It's not Superman, and it's not Superman issues. Because he's not Superman. Yes, he's taking up the mantra. Yes, he's taking up the mantle as well. But he's not actually Superman. He's not Clark Kent. He's not going to look for the same aspects. He's not going to look for the same people to save. He's not going to look for the same fights to fight. Because he's not Clark. So, Jay Nakamura apparently is a hacktivist, which, whatever, reporter and refugee who begins dating Superman after helping him to deal with mental and physical burnout. Now, this is one of the things that I was trying to stick to pointing out, which was with the story that has actually come out. The story is that because of Jonathan Kent trying to do school, saving people from school shootings, saving people from refugees, from being deported, helping refugees cross the border, looking after them, trying to stop wildfires, climate change, that type of stuff. All of the storylines been building up to how a 17-year-old isn't mentally and physically capable of being able to fight everything at all times, as well as saving general people and populace as well. So him trying to be an activist, trying to take his own interest, not being his dad, separating himself from what Superman would be doing to what Jonathan Kent would be doing, it's completely different. They had different storylines. So when they say, oh, he's got mental and physical burnout, they're talking about a 17-year-old that is trying to save normal people in the way that Superman and the comics would normally try and save them. He's also talking about the idea of him making political statements, going out of his way to save refugees, going out of his way to help the climate crisis. So whether you agree with all of those or not, it's a 17-year-old that having massive amount of burden put onto them. And if anybody knows anything about the idea of the mental health issues that the whole world is facing at the moment, it's a very similar issue. We're talking about mental health issues, about being locked away from people, and how that's affecting young, old, and everybody in between. And that's just one issue. But yet, even somebody that's as physically as strong as Superman can have mental issues and mental and physical burnout because of just doing too much too quick, especially from his age of being 17. And I think that really needs to be alliterated to the point of the story of why they were coming out, or why Jonathan Kent, I keep on saying that all the time, Jonathan Kent was coming out as, because of how the storyline progresses, how the Jay Nakamura is looking after him, helping him, being supportive. Now, if Jay Nakamura was actually being a female, and we were looking at this through a perspective of being a straight cis white male, if you want to put it that way, in that terminology, then most people would understand why Superman would fall in love or fancy or want to be with, whatever terminology you want to use to get with, the equivalent of Jay Nakamura if Jay Nakamura's character was a female. So we would all understand how that would lead to that sort of situation. But if you're already in a process of actually not knowing who you are because he's 17 years old, not understanding who you love, not understanding what your preferences are, still trying to explore yourself and understand yourself. Obviously, you have to have some precautions beforehand, trying to, let your defenses down, so to speak. It's not necessarily how a straight person would go out and try and find out if they're gay or not. That's not what we're saying here. It's more of a case of trying to point out that if Jaina was a female, everybody would be saying how bold the storyline is and how great that the storyline seems to flow together and the reasons why that they've fallen in love, rather than it just being a stopgap, so to speak, or just a filler arc, or just something that's been thrown together. No, the storyline's been set. It's actually a really good storyline, believe it or not. So if we would accept that if Jay Nakamura's character was female, why couldn't we accept the fact that if John Kent, had not known who he was, not known who he actually fell in love with or anything else like that, and started feeling attractions towards this character, why is that an issue? It's not just thrown together. There's actual backstory to it. So, the series writer Tom Taylor told the New York Times that he believes the new iteration of Superman needs to have new fights and real world problems. Now, this normally happens with new authors that take over the different franchises, different Spider-Mans. For instance, you had Spencer when he took over Civil War, the Hal Hydra iteration of Captain America, and how that storyline played out. Not many people like that, so on and so forth. But that's what happens with new authors. They take things in different ways because they're trying to be able to put their authority, their stamp, their sort of understanding or their characteristics onto the new character to broaden the character. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the correct or the right way of doing things. It's just, it's a storyline. It's a story. These are fictional characters. Again, I can understand why people are so up in arms about it, but I don't understand why when you look into it and you see that there's a storyline to it, it's not understandable, at least from the other person's side. So, in August, DC Comics has put LGBTQ plus spin on another of its most iconic characters, revealing that Batman sidekick Robin, Tim Drake, is also bisexual. The news comes 5 months after Marvel unveiled its first gay Captain America. Now, people will go, "Oh, well, they're turning Robin gay. They're turning Captain America gay." No, this is not Steve Rogers as Captain America, by the way, that's apparently gay. And Tim Blake has never really actually been with too many people, come to think of it. There's always been an iteration of him trying to get with Starfire, or them almost getting together from Team Titans and growing up and so on and so forth. But there isn't actually them getting together. There's always the innuendo, the subplot of them wanting to but never actually pushing for it. So again, I don't really see too much of an issue with that, especially considering that a lot of characters actually, sorry, not a lot of characters, a lot of actual men and women actually like Tim Drake. So it would make sense from a commercial standpoint as well to make him bisexual. But okay, so yeah, I don't really see too much of an issue with this, but that's just me. So I want to see if there's anybody that's come up. That's a fallacy. Okay, well, we have people. When was the last time you read a comic? Quite a lot, actually. To be fair, I've actually read quite a lot of comics, and I actually enjoy comics quite a bit. So welcome, telahim 29. The comics community has zero problem with LGBTIQ characters. Okay, so why? No, that's wrong though, because there is so many people that are apparently into the community that actually don't like it, actually don't want it to be that way. So I don't think that that's true at all, and I really don't think that that's true at all. I think that there are a lot of issues, and we will go through quite a lot of people. I will show you what I will do to be able to get all of these things put forward, so that we can show you why I think that it's been such a problem for people for such a long time. Because there is an issue with how the right and the people on the right actually formulate this problem. So I do think it's actually a massive issue that people in the community actually, for some reason, are pushing out. And so Tom Taylor never writes or even does even trans characters in his stories. Okay. Okay. So what? Don't understand how that's a fallacy. Explain to me what you're talking about, what she called out as a fallacy. Actually, what a hat jog this live streamer is. Oh, okay. That's nice. So if Jay was a female, the writer would be called out as a cis fascist. Would he really? Would he really? Okay. What a hat job this live streamer is. Okay, in what way? I do understand that you're a little bit below the time difference, so to speak, is in like a couple of seconds. So interesting read. It's very interesting that when I want to say people like yourself, but let's not try and judge anybody at the moment. But when people like Telahim that are in the chat at the moment actually start interacting, oh, that's a fallacy. What's a fallacy? When people go, oh, if Jay was a female character, the writer would be called out as a fascist. How? Why? Every single comic book that sticks to the norms never gets called out for anything. So how would they be called out as a cis fascist if that was the case? Because that's not the case. That's not how this happens. So I find that very interesting, Telahim. And again, a hat job. Yeah, I don't try and pretend that I'm something amazing. I'm just some bloke that's sitting on a computer. So that's me. But a lot of people on the right are finding this really hard, and I want to share. I suppose you could call it a stream from the Lotus Eaters. So Sargon of Akkad's sister, brother, mother, father channel. Not really sure what it is anymore. I know it's linked with Sargon, and I know that he started up the channel because, apparently the algorithm dies on the Sargon of Akkad channel, so he did another one. All right, let me just have a look at what you're talking about here. We will get back to that story very quickly. Let's have a look at what you put down. I've met people from both sides. I have been following the character of John Samuel Kent in the comic books. Okay. I'm happy for you. So have I. Yeah, I understand what you meant by both sides of politics, Telahim. I understood that. I don't like to try and put people into bad faith. That's the reason why I'm trying to engage with you honestly. Now, some people may think that that's not what I'm doing, but I am. I'm trying to find out what you actually think and what you feel here. Let me ask you an actual question. Do you actually have a problem with Jonathan Kent coming out as bisexual? Is it something that with the new iteration since July that would actually follow him actually turning bisexual or being bisexual or exploring himself as being bisexual? Because I'd really like to find out. I'd really like to find out if you actually think that it's a good thing or a bad thing. So I'd really like to know that. But while you're going through that, let's have a little look at the Lotus Eaters and see how that goes. So
I'm not very familiar with the comic industry, so you're going to have to guide me through this.
I'll do my best. And anyone out there who's unfamiliar, I'll try and fill in some of the details. So it's been recently announced that Superman is now bisexual. because that's what everybody who's interested in comic books was looking forward to.
That was the essential characteristic of Superman, wasn't it? The
That,
fact he was straight.
Well, actually, yeah, the whole point of Superman... When Superman 2 came out, one of the most iconic scenes was Superman reversing time by flying around the Earth to save Lois Lane that died. So when you say, oh, it was an essential part of his character, actually, yes, it was. It was an essential part of his character, especially in the comic books, because his love for Lois Lane was one of the main strengths that he always gained from and always was to strive to do better. So yes, it was an essential part of his character. But as you said, my friend, you're not actually that privy to the comic book. So let's carry on.
Exactly. Nobody reads them for the exciting fights or anything like that. So in this Guardian article that we've got up...
I'm sorry. Right. Yes, people read them for the exciting fights, but they don't read them just for the fights. They read them for the storylines and the reasons why the fights happen. It's not just a case of, oh, well, okay, what we're going to do in this issue is we're just going to have everybody fighting everybody for absolutely no reason. No, the whole plot and subplot is built up from scratch or continued from the earliest issues. It's never just a case of, oh, we're just going to throw this in here for no reason whatsoever. There's always a reason to it, and there's always a story to it. So for somebody that's supposed to be a comic books expert, as you saying that you are, by the way, I'm not, I just enjoy them. It's interesting that you would come out and say that people only watch or read them for the exceptional fight scenes. It's like you're only talking about the movies and not the comic books.
Up here, you can see DC Comics reveals latest Superman as bisexual in a new issue. It must be made to point out that those of you familiar with Clark Kent as Superman, it's no longer Clark Kent, or at least in these particular this particular issue or whatever. It's a new series called Superman, Son of Kal-El, which sounds like a replacement.
It's not a replacement. Like, for anybody that's actually interested in comic books, and all it takes is a cursory Google search as well for the reasons why Superman, the son of Kal-El, is actually about, is because Clark Kent is actually off somewhere else trying to fight other creatures to stop them from invading the galaxy, so to speak. So that's the reason why he's not there on Earth and why this iteration of the comic book is actually going across. So for somebody who's supposed to be here explaining the comic books to us, you're not doing a really good goddamn job of it, are you? Oh, I don't really know why he's there, but it sounds like it's a replacement. You know, it sounds like it. That's good, isn't it? Carrying on.
Sort of series. So it's his son, Jonathan Kent, who is bisexual. It says here, the traditionally heterosexual superhero will embark on a same-sex relationship with a friend in a new comic. Kent, who is the son of Clark Kent and Lois Lane, started his tenure in July. I must say, I am at least glad that it isn't a reveal of Clark Kent, the original Superman, as being bisexual, because at this point I wouldn't put it past them.
I would like to point out as well that I actually agree with him on that one. I don't think the last comic actually goes with that, because I don't think that they've actually tried to change any of the major characters so much, especially ones that have established storylines, for instance. But I do agree that it would be absolutely devastating to the 70 to however many years that Superman's been around for its character to be fundamentally changed for a gimmick at that point. But I think taking Jonathan Kent, the son of Superman, and using that as a character to be able to springboard this exploration and idea in depth is actually a really good way of trying to introduce that to new people, new characters, and just understanding it as a norm rather than it just being out there. But again, I don't like the way that the little quip at the end was, where he's just like, yeah, well, you know, they're doing it to everyone. Are they? Are they really? Oh, okay, fair enough.
given that it would kind of be destroying the sanctity that you could say of the long-standing relationship that he's had with Lois Lane, which has kind of been just set in stone for the past 80 years or so. But for all intents and purposes, this new Jonathan Kent appears to just be him, but younger. As I said, itching for a replacement. And
no, not itching for a replacement. There's an actual reason in the storyline. You're supposed to be the comic book guy. Why does somebody that only reads it casually knows the difference of why that they put the storyline in? It's the whole reason when you had somebody like the Green Lantern and you had somebody like Hal Jordan that was in it for such a long time, and then he went off to do something else, fighting as a White Lantern, I believe, for quite a while, and was taken away from the Green Lantern series. And you had other people take over from the Green Lantern for a while until Hal Jordan come back, and then you had Tom. I can't remember his name. I think it's Tom Thompson, but I'm not 100% sure. People remember the JSL character for Green Lantern rather than it being Hal Jordan. But those things happen. There are changes in characters, and they are explained quite rigorously of why that they've changed. Some of them die off, yeah, fair enough, and get replaced by other characters. Some just retire. Some actually have a storyline where they fire in other people in a distant galaxy to stop them invading another galaxy. You know, like Superman. It's almost like you don't read the comic books.
And it says here that his new love interest is Jay Nakamura, a reporter who cares for him after he mentally and physically burns out from trying to save everyone that he can. He needs to pick up all of that emotional labor that Superman can't carry.
I think that this is more of a interesting idea of what Superman actually holds to everybody else. Because Superman can't have mental anguish, according to these two at least. Superman can't have mental anguish. Superman can't have mental trials, mental tribulations. And the things with Superman, he knew not to go around and stopping every mugging. Because he knew he couldn't do that. He would go around and try and save the people that were going to have the most numbers of deaths that happened at once. So he would stop planes from crashing, stop national disasters, that type of thing. He wouldn't necessarily go around, though he has done, but he wouldn't necessarily go around and save everybody at all times. Now, in this iteration of the Son of Kal-El, it's actually a case of Jonathan Kent does go around and try to save everybody. He does everything that Superman does, as well as picking up the politics that the writer wants to be illuminated. So he wants to talk about climate change. He wants to talk about the idea of refugees and immigration and so on and so forth. Depending on what your opinions are, that doesn't matter to the story. It's a case of that's what the author wants that to happen. So he's not just doing everything that Superman did. He's still trying to save normal people, still trying to stop people from being mugged, going around stopping school shootings, trying to put fires out, trying to put national disasters out as well, and trying to politically go against the establishment and help people get refugee status and so on and so forth. So that's a lot of shit for a 17-year-old to get onto, right? Now, remember, Jonathan Kent isn't a man. He's 17 years old. So when they start talking about his mental anguish, this isn't a man that's supposed to be dealing with all of this. It's a 17-year-old kid. So let's see if they actually understand that.
Right.
Yes.
Maybe a superhero?
Yes, superheroes do have mental anguishes. In actual fact, there are massively great storylines where superheroes have had mental anguish, where their confidence had been completely taken away and stripped away from them. For instance, Batman, when he had his back broken against Bane, took ages for his mental anguish and his mental fear of Bane to get over that, in the comic books at least. But, you know, that adds to the story about when he actually overcomes it and he beats Bane. But, you know, he's supposed to be Superman. He can't have any besmirching characteristic.
Yeah, he is supposed to be a superhero, but apparently that he just can't deal with it right now, man.
Yeah.
I would save that bus full of children, but man, I'm just so burnt out.
Yeah, that's actually something that happens. Well, like for instance, with the sports people that we have at the moment, where they train, they push themselves, they keep on doing so much physical activity that they do actually burn themselves out. It's the same thing as when you're at school, for instance, and you're trying to study for a test, and you're trying to study for such a long time, and then all of a sudden your brain just cuts out, and you can't study anymore. That's burnout, where you just can't focus on it anymore. So it's really funny that the guy with the smirk, that's supposed to be the comic books guy, right, is actually coming out and not understanding storylines and not understanding real world issues that affect and would affect real life superheroes if they were a thing. It's like the idealization of the superheroes is blinding them to realizing that they're supposed to be people as well, with their own personal traumas and personal responsibilities, their personal traumas, as I said. So, yeah, storylines are important, and the reasons why storylines happen are even more important.
And the writer for it, a man called, let me see here, where is it? Tom Taylor has said that I've always said everyone needs heroes and everyone deserves to see themselves in their heroes. And I'm very grateful DC and Warner Brothers share this idea, said Taylor in a statement. Superman's symbol has always stood for hope, truth, and justice. Today, that symbol represents something more.
Right, before they laugh about that, he's still going out of his way to be truth, justice, and whatever. But he's also adding on to the point of that Superman, or in this case, Jonathan Kent, has so many other mental anguishes to go through that he's still only 17 years old. He's still trying to do too much at once. He's still trying to find himself, trying to learn among the way. It's obvious that this comic book is trying to grab younger audiences, to try and pull younger audiences to come back to the comic books. Just because that he's bisexual, it doesn't take away the idea of still, when you're young, trying to find out who you are, what you want to do, and the pressures that come with that. Now, can you imagine the pressure of not just being a normal average Joe, but the pressure of everything that society throws on you as a 17-year-old, added with the pressure of trying to live up to Superman and his identity of what he does? Can you imagine the pressure you'd be under on that one? No, of course you're not, because Superman's supposed to be Superman, isn't it?
I mean, literally. I mean, I'm sure you're aware. I called it a video called "The Progressive Skin Suit."
It is absolutely just popping that skin suit right on.
Like,
but it's not just popping a skin suit on. There's an actual storyline to it. There's a reason why these things happen. It builds up. It shows you how Jonathan Kent actually starts to try to do too much. How he starts to fall apart because he's trying to do too much at once. And it shows you all of this, and it shows you Jaina actually comforting him, and how the relationship actually grows, blossoms, if you want to put it in that sort of terminology. And it's actually quite interesting to watch or read in this instance. So it's not just popping a skin suit on and going, yeah, we just turned him gay. That's not what it is, Carl. That's not what it is, Lotus Eaters. That's not what it is. But carry on.
All these symbols, you know how they used to stand for the thing that's the main part of the franchise? No, not anymore. They stand for my new things.
Yes.
Adding extra things onto things that you've already had is not taking away from the things that you already had at the beginning. So truth, justice, the American way, blah, 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 is still the same and is still there, but they have added something else onto it. That doesn't take away from the first three things. Just means that there's more things to talk about and he stands for more things. Do you understand what character development actually fucking is?
Today, more people can see themselves in the most powerful superhero in comics. I mean, the contention that I would bring up is that this is just completely rejecting universalism. Like, anybody can just pick up a Superman comic and go like, wow, and imagine yourself in that position. But no, you need to have all of the immutable characteristics of whatever character you're reading as to be able to identify with them.
Do you know it's really funny that you say that? Superman comes out as bi. These two straight heterosexual men are now moaning that Superman is bi because it doesn't represent them and how their ideology of the world fits. Really interesting how that is. Oh, it destroys universalism if we have bisexual people, because you should just be able to pick up a comic book and go, yeah, I identify with that person. Interesting. We're now moaning about how the identity doesn't represent you and you're moaning about it. Interesting how that fucking works out, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
It's completely.
I mean, if the main character isn't you, then you can't identify with the story. I mean, that's the argument fundamentally.
No, that's not the argument fundamentally. And in actual fact, that's a straw man of what the actual argument is. The actual argument is representation. So it's trying to say that if people are not represented, as in sexual orientation, their identity, what their pronouns are in some instances, blah, 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 so many other things that you could throw into that, it's a case of people don't identify with that hero. There's a reason why people identify with Batman more than they identify with Superman. The reason why they identify with Batman more is because he doesn't have powers, he uses his smarts. It's a case of the moral choices that he would make. It more aligns with more people's understanding of how the world works, because Batman is more of a realist, where Superman is more of an idealist. So yes, more people would support and understand and love Batman more than they do Superman, because they can identify him more. It's also the reasons why you have people that like the Flash, because they identify with his ideals more, not just his powers or his representation, though with the different renovations of the Flash, there are so many different aspects that would fit people's different stories, and why there are so many different favorite Flashes, for instance. But, everything is about the symbology to these people, rather than it actually being about the character development and the characterization and what the character stands for. To these people, it's the symbology of what the character is. I believe that the character should be this, so why is it not this?
Yes.
Because why just stop at race? Why not stop
At
with
which-
every other difference?
At which point, why would you even read comic books? Why not just write fan fiction about yourself, or just stare in a mirror?
I mean, that's what these people used to do before they got
And
into
that is
the mainstream.
basically what they are doing now.
Yeah.
So the beginning of that was, well, why are they writing fan fiction? Their rendition of why they're not writing fan fiction is because they were looking in the mirror and arguing with themselves or whatever. And then they go right full circle and go, oh, well, that's what they're doing now anyway in this comic book. Like, I know circular reasoning is used quite a lot. But goddamn. Goddamn. And this is all on the idea of a comic book that they doesn't even seem to have read. Now, I'm not trying to say that I'm the arbiter of comic books. I read them every now and again. I'm not trying to say that I'm full up on everything that's to go on in comic books. I'm not an expert. I've never portrayed myself to be an expert, and I never will, especially on comic books. But the guy that is in the t-shirt is being put onto this podcast as the expert for comic books, to be asked to explain what's going on. Now, you could say, oh, yeah, but he's putting forth his ideology on top of the actual instances of the comic books. He doesn't even understand why the Son of Kyle's comic books actually even started off at the beginning, why the storyline's there, why Jonathan Kent is actually being Superman, and why there's no Superman on Earth. He just assumes, oh, it's a replacement. No, there's reasons to it. Clark Kent will never be replaced as Superman because too many people know him as Superman. But these type of things don't actually matter to them. It's more of the outrage. Oh, he's bisexual. Oh, let's capitalize on this outrage, because people are going to be outraged that my Superman has turned from what I remember him to be. And it's just interesting. It's like the whole idea with Ironheart. They never turned Tony Stark from not being Iron Man anymore. They changed it to another girl that Tony Stark was actually following that thought that if he was to pass away or die from Avengers Endgame, that somebody else would be able to take over the mantle. Somebody else would be able to carry on and be like Tony Stark. And that's what he was looking for. And that's why she was able to take over. It wasn't just a case of, oh, the storyline is that Tony Stark turns to a black female. No, that there's a reason to it. It's not just thrown in for no reason. Now, you may dislike the character and think that the character doesn't actually do anything. But you can't say that there isn't a reason to the character change and the development of it. And that's why I think people that only cursorily look at titles and headlines miss the nuance of the actual stories that are being made. Now, yeah, we can have a look at comic books and actually see that they're declining overall. And you could argue that that's because of the storylines that are coming out. Or it could be how people in alternative media are turning people away from the comic books because of their prejudice of what the storylines are going to be. If you look to people that are supposedly the arbiters of what a good storyline is, and yet they say that, oh, well, this is an absolute crap storyline, don't buy it. 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to buy it to check to see if you like the storyline, are you? So you could argue that it's actually alternative media that's destroying the comic book section. But that's just my opinion, and I have nothing to back that up with. It's just an opinion.
Fair. But I mean, it was even the case where previously Superman had a comic book called Truth, Justice, and the American Way. And I bet they don't have anything to say about the American way nowadays.
That's the thing. I actually think that they do. I actually think that there are people that are a lot left-leaning. Even the ones that are fucking communist. Even them have an idea of what they want the American way to actually be. Because the thing is, the idea of what an American way is to two Brits that are on the TV, and to me, that's another Brit, is completely different to the over 360 million different Americans in America. Because America, fuck yeah.
The American race white supremacy. So
yeah, but it at the end of the day, this is basically just a complete publicity grab.
Again, I don't actually think it is. Simply because of how the storyline has been evolved and how it has shaped. It doesn't actually seem to be a gimmick. Considering that if you want to, let's title the storylines as people on the right may think they are. Because they're SJW storylines and how they interwove together, they actually are congruent with that actual storyline and plot from that comic book. So they actually fit in really well with that storyline. It's just interesting how Superman, don't like that, don't identify with that Superman anymore, but people should identify with the Superman that I do. I just find that really interesting because that is predominantly the argument here.
Just trying to go for virtue signaling points. I mean,
well, I think it's also another destruction of a property.
It is absolutely a subversion.
I love this conspiracy theory. The left is going out of their way to destroy the properties, the intellectual properties and aspects of the things that I like because I like them. Dude, you're not that important. The franchises of comic books, they're not that important. But even if they are, and even if you think that they are, why would you assume malice when it could be that they just want their ideals and their representation to be in the idealization of their Superman, of their Flash, of their Batman, of their heroes to represent their ideals? I don't think that is done in malice. You could say that it's done in selfishness. You could argue that, but it's not done in malice. To attribute something to malice means that they are doing it on purpose because they hate it. I don't think that they hate it. I think they want representation and shown their ideals and their ideas in the comic books that they used to love.
Version, skin suits, destruction, as you say. But comic books have a long line of going for these sorts of attention-grabbing headline events, whereas back in the 80s and the 90s, and basically up until about 10 years ago, it would just be, there would be a big shiny red button that says kill major character. like Wolverine, I think the last one it happened to in the comic books was a few years ago, back in 2013. It's like Wolverine has died. He's alive again now because comic books, and that's just how it works. But now they've replaced that button with a shiny new red button.
Make it queer.
Yes, gay. The gay button.
I would actually want to point out that I kind of agree with that statement. That comic books, because of the storylines, and because of what's already been done before, when most authors take over, especially like Tom Taylor has at this point, they want to establish their own character. So they try and start from a beginning and they restart, if you want to put it that way, a character and how that character is going to represent that comic for that section of comic books, or for that series, should I say. And yeah, a lot of people do a reset, and when they do a reset, they do it with either killing off a previous character or the character, and then it coming back and being somebody different. Amnesia, being different. I think a couple of times they've been cloned, so on and so forth. So many different ways of killing and getting a character to come back, right? Where now that the characters come back, they change to be a different person now. For instance, when everybody was talking about, Spider-Man is now bisexual, it's like, no, Spider-Man isn't. Miles Morales is Spider-Man. Peter Parker isn't. Miles Morales is. And it's just like, the characters are now changing, and because the characters are now changing, they have different ideologies, they have different identities and different expressions. So I understand where they're coming from, where, they just push a button to make him gay or make him queer, or as they put it, for some strange, weird reason. But it's actually a better way of reinventing the characters for the authors to say, they've just changed who they are. As in, Peter Parker is passing on the mantle of Spider-Man to Miles Morales, or Superman isn't Clark Kent anymore. He's passed it on to his son, Jonathan Kent, and Jonathan Kent is bisexual, thus making Superman bisexual. The actual evolution in the storyline, the continuity of the storyline is continued and is structured properly, rather than just saying, yeah, he died. Oh, he come back. Oh, this is my version of the character. There's actually a reason to it. So that's basically the end of that section for the good old Lotus Eaters. They go into the aspects of their idea of what's happening with the comic book overall. If anybody wants to go and watch that and get full aspects to that, then by all means do. It's in the description box down below. So I'm going to come back and have a quick look at what's been said beforehand. Let's see if you actually did that. First things first, they never set things up organically in the comic books for this to occur. You haven't read the storyline then, Telahim. The storyline is that the first 5 issues are the storyline being set up for this to happen. It didn't just go, yeah, fuck it, we're making gay. No, Jaina has actually been looking after him while he's been having this burnout. It's interesting. This present approach is unnatural. What, for him to be bisexual, or I don't even think that I should even attempt to talk to the chat anymore. Lewis Lane, not Lewis. It's like, yeah, I know. Well done. Clark Kent has gone to War World. I know. Jaina comes off like a Mal Wonder Woman as seen in the Tom Taylor's Injustice run. And? No Date Jay will be used the same way as the Injustice Wonder Woman. I mean, that's a completely different storyline, but... Okay, so these are all your prejudice and your ideas of what the storyline is going to be used as? It's interesting. At the end of the day, capitalism wins because of putting rainbow colors on a comic book. not an argument. And people still go out of their way to buy it or even pirate it. Yes, because they like the stories. I mean, Jesus, come on. Whether you love or hate capitalism, they are still doing this story for profit, not to lose profit. Obviously. It hasn't evolved. If this was to come off as organic, the seeds of this would have started in Rebirth. No, the seeds of this would not need to start in Rebirth because the Rebirth was nothing to do with that. It was to do with a fucking clone that everybody had to fight. So it had nothing to do with that. But hey ho, the storyline wouldn't have actually put anything into that. But you know, whatever. The character the word you are looking for is retcon the character. In some aspects, yes, but most authors like to reimagine the character in a way that they think, a way that they want the character to run, how they see the character. So yeah, you could argue that it's a retcon, but in most cases it's not. Because yes, I know DC Rebirth, and I know. I know. In most aspects of retcon, it is to retcon the original character. If you are changing the character from Clark Kent to Jonathan Kent, you are not retconning the character. Just so you know. Right, so I would actually like to show what the author said and what the author thinks about this. Because that way we can then go into how other people have decided that they're going to talk about this and see how accurate they are to their ideologies and their terminologies. Shall we? So this is going to be the actual author speaking.
It's not a gimmick. It's when I was offered this job, I thought, well, if we're going to have a new Superman for the DC universe, it feels like a missed opportunity to have another straight white savior. And we didn't want this to be DC Comics creates new queer Superman. We want this to be Superman finds himself, becomes Superman, and then comes out. And I think there's a really important distinction there.
And I'll be honest with you, I actually agree with the author on that one. So let's just go back to that so we can actually hear that properly. Hopefully everybody can hear it and it's not too low. So I will quickly actually check with that. Was that actually too low, chat? I will quickly check. Was that too low for everybody? Well, okay. Well, we'll go back to actually doing that rather than having loads of silence in the world. So we'll carry on.
It's not a gimmick. It's when I was offered this job, I thought, well, if we're going to have a new Superman for the DC universe, it feels like a missed opportunity to have another straight white savior. And we didn't want this to be DC Comics creates new queer Superman. We want this to be Superman finds himself, becomes Superman, and then comes out. And I think there's a really important distinction there.
So, as I said before, I actually agree with him because the storyline isn't just, oh, he just comes out. No, the storyline for the first 5 issues is him being overworked, mentally drained, trying to save everybody, not understanding who he is, what he can do, what he needs to do, who he needs to save, so on and so forth. What he should stand for, what he shouldn't stand for, and having Jay Nakamura actually helping him find himself, helping him being able to support him, understand him, so on and so forth, like Lois Lane actually did, and be able to help him understand what's going on. And no, Jay Nakamura never put any pressure on him or anything else like that. It was just a case of him falling in love or fancying him or wanting to get with Jay Nakamura that actually led him to that way. So it wasn't him just going, I'm gay now. Let's fuck. It's long process that took over 5 to 6 issues for him to actually even get to an understanding of exploring that aspect. Because he still hasn't come out as going, yep, I'm definitely this way yet. Just because you start kissing and doing things doesn't mean that you've necessarily come out as that. I mean, you basically have, but you haven't initially announced it yet. But you basically have. I won't distinguish against that too much. So there is an actual, if you want to put it that way, a step ladder to how he gets to, if you want to put it that way, coming out. But it was more of a case of him finding himself and the reasons on why that they were falling in love together, rather than it being just a case of, yep, day one, gay. No, that didn't happen. It's taken 5 to 6 issues of storyline, of support, love, care, talking about issues and so on and so forth, where he got to that point. So, to be honest, by the way, this isn't one of my favorite comics. And I'll be honest, it's not one of my favorite comics. But I want to understand and let people understand that the storyline actually has a point to it, rather than it just being, yep, they changed Superman to be bisexual now. Yep, how horrible they are, because that didn't happen at all. So, ladies and gents, and however you may identify, this is the part that we are going to absolutely love, because I'm going to do a quick Google search. All right, one big issue of your argument is issue 5 isn't out yet. How is that a big issue? We're talking about issue 5. But literally talking about issue 5. Issue 5 is where he comes out to be bisexual. I mean, I love the principal officer's take on this one, because there would be a very interesting the pounding that would be going on there. Who is the receiver? Who is the dominant? I just wondering. But yeah, one big issue with the argument, issue 5 isn't out yet. Yes, because we're talking about issue 5. That this is the prelude to issue 5. That's literally what we're talking about at the minute. But I'm now going to show my screen for YouTube, and we're going to look for a couple of different videos. Right. Superman. Bye. See what videos pop up. Excuse me. So, good morning. We'll talk about it. So, BBC News talking about it. Someone is watching me. Okay, that seems interesting. That has 11,000. So let's have you, shall we? By the way, I don't have ad blocker, so my fault, everyone. My fault.
So this is going to be a very...
So let's just carry on.
Very... So this is going to be a very, very tough topic to talk about, especially being from a heterosexual white male.
I don't understand why it's such a tough topic. I don't understand that. Why is it such a tough topic to talk about, especially from a heterosexual point of view?
Because the internet already doesn't like us, right? Twitter already doesn't like us. Our opinion has no merit. So it's going to...
A really weird way of looking at things. Oh, Twitter and YouTube don't like us. Blah, no. Okay. Let's say that that's true. Why does that make it weird or hard for you to talk about it in your video?
It's going to be a very, very tough subject to talk about, but I feel like I need to say something because everybody and their mom is sending me the articles like, Rob, talk about this. Rob, talk about this. Rob, talk about this. So I'm going to come at this from a different perspective, or at least try to. But I know going in, I'm going to piss off one side or another, if not both sides. But strap on, because we're going to talk about how DC Comics turned Jonathan Kent, aka Superman's son, bisexual. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel once again. I am Robert Storm. As always, if you're trying...
One thing I've always hated about certain YouTube channels is that they do their intro, then they do a little cut or their intro music, and then they say, "Oh, hi, welcome back to the channel." It's like you were just talking. We haven't gone anywhere. Like, say that at the beginning of a video. Don't say that at the beginning of like a quarter of the way through or whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
On me for the very first time, please be sure to click that like and subscribe button. That way you guys can stay up to date on all future content here on the channel. If you guys aren't aware of what's going on, DC Comics for Pride Month has turned Jonathan Kent, aka Superman's son, Kal-El's son, bisexual.
Can I just actually point out that they haven't done it for Pride Month? They've done it to coincide with Pride Month, not actually because of Pride Month. So just putting that out there, guys.
In issue 5, you can see the cover right here. You can see the rainbow for the logo for Pride Month. They decided, okay, we're going to turn Jonathan Kent bisexual. This is more fuel to the LGBTQ community, the alphabet community. I don't want...
What a way to explain or to go, well, oh, these people that want to explain and have people understand their identity, their expression, how their sexual orientation is. Oh yeah, the Apple alphabet. It's like, dude, no wonder why so many people will go after you for that. You're trying to say that you're trying to be respectful to both sides. You're literally just calling the other side names.
Understand why, like, every month we feel like we're adding a new letter onto the LGBT tag. And you know, let's kind of look at this, because again, I'm going to piss people off. I'm going to piss people off on either side of this, if not both sides. You know, being a heterosexual male, we have no opinion, especially in 2021. We have no opinion on anything.
Dude, I'm heterosexual with you. Most of my audience are heterosexual. We all have opinions. To sit there on YouTube, where predominantly most of the people that have opinions and have platforms on YouTube are white cis men, you want to sit there and say that nobody values your fucking opinion. How conceited do you have to be? You yourself got 11,000 views on this video. You have 26,000 subscribers yourself talking about this. But as a white cis male, nobody values your opinion, do they? Nobody. Really? Get the fuck out of here.
You know, we are looked at basically as the worst scum on earth. Even the good ones, like me, I feel like I'm...
Ow. Ow. Everybody hates us, but even when we talk about it, and I'm the good one that's talking about it, fuck me, dude. Fuck me.
Good person. You know, we are looked at as scum. We have no opinion on anything, especially anything to do with race or lesbian or gay or transsexual. We have none of that.
Okay, dude, stop with the fucking pity
start off by
party.
saying, I don't care if you're gay, lesbian. I don't care if you suck dick, lick pussy. I don't care if you get your wiener chopped off, get an artificial penis, or I do not care. As long as your heart is pure and you're a good person and you don't bother me, I don't care what you do in your personal life. I honestly don't give a shit. I do have a problem, however, where we are starting to send the wrong message, right? It's like...
Wrong message to who, by whom, and to whom. Because to saying that a message is good or bad implies that there's moral context there. And depending on your definition of moral, that could be arbitrary, subjective, relative, or it could be objective. But it still has a moral structure there. So what do you mean by a bad message?
Like, I don't care if you have a LGBTP super D doo doo 1 2 3 XYZ
Great respect there, guy. Couldn't even be bothered to remember the actual acronym for the people that you're talking about and trying to denigrate. But you know, you're trying to be on both sides, right?
Character in comic books, but do we have to keep turning existing characters gay, lesbian, transsexual, what on, so forth? Like, what do we have to keep doing this? You know, first it was years ago, it was Bobby, Iceman in the X-Men. They turned him gay. Oh, apparently he was gay this entire time, but he was in the closet. Then a few months ago, Tim Drake came out as bisexual.
Very, very quickly, I want you to understand that in the 80s or 90s, they turned Iceman gay. But they've been doing this for such a long time, turning every character gay, turning every character queer or whatever, that he goes from the 80s or 90s to 2020. But they've been doing it forever, guys. Doing it forever.
And now Jonathan Kent is the latest to be part of the bisexual clan. Which doesn't make, like, when you think of Superman's background being like the, you know, Mr. America farm boy, you know, it just.
Wait, are you trying to say that American farm boys can't be gay or bisexual? Are you honestly trying to say that? Also, as well, Jonathan Kent wasn't a farm boy. As far as I remember, he mostly lived in Metropolis. But okay, carrying on.
I don't know. And I know a lot of people that reached out to me, and a lot of them said they are really turned off by this, and they're no longer going to read these comics. I don't care.
It's really interesting that when people talk about the idea of universalism, as Lotus Eaters did, right? Where they're like, oh, we want representation. Why can't they actually pick up a comic book and enjoy the character that's already been put onto the page that already represents what I think it should do? And then you change it slightly by making a character bi, gay, or whatever. And apparently then, even though the character predominantly is almost exactly the same, apart from the love interest or how they express themselves, it's amazing that the people that believe in universalism then cry, moan, and spit their dummies out, saying that this doesn't represent me anymore. But then cry, we should be able to pick up a comic book the way that I like it, because I like it, you should. Interesting, that, isn't it?
Care what you do in your comics, but why do you have to always keep taking these existing characters and turning them something that?
Yes, why do you have to take the 3 characters that you've named, and I'm not saying that you needed to name all of them, but the 3 characters that you named that said have been happening for years, and turn them gay or bisexual? Bobby, Iceman, never actually really ended up with anybody, even though that there was a point where he had a love interest with Rogue for a little while, but never really went anywhere, never really did anything. I don't see what the big problem with him turning gay ever was and never has been. But again, the same thing with Tim Drake. He never really actually got anything. It was always implied that he was interested in Starfire and vice versa, but never actually went anywhere. And Jonathan Kent is a 17-year-old boy that doesn't understand if he's gay, bisexual, or straight. And all of these storylines are backed up with actual plot. But, you know, universalism. You should like the characters that I like. Otherwise, you're wrong.
They're not. Now, I'm going to say something that's probably going to piss off a lot of people, but whatever. Let's piss off a lot of people. I feel like we're sending the wrong message. It's okay to support LGBTQ, all this stuff. But there's come a time where you're like really force feeding it down people's throats. Like every time you turn around, it's like boom, you're gonna like this, motherfucker. Take this, you white heterosexual male. You're gonna fucking love this shit. And
it's really interesting the way that he frames that, because that says a hell of a lot more about how he perceives the world than how the world actually is. So he perceives the world of when people are talking about LGBTQ plus issues, that it's the world trying to force feed him that point of view and that issue, rather than people just trying to explain their issues and their points of view. This is a case of him saying that he believes that when people are talking about this, they are targeting him and trying to force it down his throat. Interesting way of looking at things, my dude.
And it gets to a point where the more you try to force it down somebody's throat, the more they're going to start to be like, come on, enough is enough. And I know people from all different races, all different sexual preferences that are just kind of getting fed up with this. Now, I'm going to look at this through a different perspective. And I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to kind of talk about kids today, right?
Think of the children. Think of the children argument. Oh, here it comes. Let's have an emotional pill to let's think of the children.
I've dated women who have children. I have dated women who had children who are young, under the age of 13, and they constantly see on YouTube, social media, movies, television shows, Disney now, where characters are gay, lesbian, queer, transsexual, and all this.
And what's wrong with that? Because that represents society much more than just everybody being straight and heterosexual. If you have a problem with gay relationships where they're not showing any sexual activity or anything else like that, apart from maybe holding hands or having a kiss, why do you not have a problem with heterosexual relationships with them holding hands or having a kiss? That means that you dislike the relationship between the gays, the bisexuals, the transsexuals. You dislike them, not the relationship. Because if you had an issue with the relationships being shown, you'd have an issue with heterosexual relationships being shown. But I bet you don't.
And it makes them question things that they don't even know yet. They're not even able to quantify in their brains what these things mean. I dated someone, I'm not going to mention any names, who had a young son. And the son wasn't even 13, and he thinks he's gay. You know?
Because somebody watched something and was like, oh, I identify more with that than I do with how everybody else thinks about heterosexual relationships, but I like this one more, is great. That means that the kid is finding out who they are at an early age. It means that they are going to be more comfortable with themselves when they grow up, rather than trying to hide or trying to pander to how you think that the kid should actually act or be. The kid themselves gets to decide. Now, yeah, you could argue that there are parents that push the ideology onto the kids and force them to do stuff. There are parents that do that. And I'm with you. I'm against that ideology and that way of doing things. But if a kid, as you are portraying it, watches a TV show and the kid identifies more with a homosexual relationship than he does with a heterosexual relationship, then that's great news for the kid. Because that means the kid's finding out who they are and what they want to do. Or in this case, who they want to do.
Oh, he thinks he's gay. How do you know that you're gay?
When you're 13, how do you know you're straight? It's because you start to fancy women. If you start understanding that you fancy men and TV shows show that it's okay, then you can say, yeah, I fancy men. Where if you come out and actually say to the kid, no, you don't fancy men, you fancy women, you're forcing them to question everything that they think and feel. But I guess that wouldn't cross your mind, would it? That the idea of acceptance breeds the idea of exploring who you are rather than just trying to close the people off. And this is just the first video. I didn't even... No, let's carry on.
Who haven't even experienced life yet. Now, yes, in every aspect of life, there are different circumstances. Some people just born that way. But in a lot of ways now, I feel like if you grow up seeing this in your face all the time, it's basically sitting there saying, hey, it's all right for me to go do this. It's all right for me to go do that.
Ow. It is okay for you to go out and do this. It is okay for you to go out and do that. If you fancy men and it's consensual, go out and have as much safe, protected sex as you fucking want when you're old enough and legally able to go and do it. If you want to go and have sex with men and women, even at the same goddamn time, as long as it's consensual and you're safe, go out and enjoy yourself. Why the hell does it matter? The whole argument is you do not like it. So why do something I do not like?
And they're not really. It's almost like it's putting the wrong messages in their head. Now,
What wrong message? The wrong message that you don't want people to be gay or bisexual or expressing themselves? You just want everything to be in a nice, neat box? I'm really interested, actually, because you haven't made any arguments apart from I feel.
Now, if they reach a certain age and they feel like, hey, I want to pursue guys, I'm really attracted to guys, I want to pursue guys, then by all means, pursue guys. Pursue whatever makes you happy. Whatever makes you happy, pursue that in life.
So why would it matter if a person at 12 or 13 or 18 or 21 finds out that they like guys? Why is the age? Like, I don't get it. Like, when I was 12, 13, I wanted to be with women all the goddamn time, or, girls my age type thing, sexually attractive, wanted them, So if I wanted to be with men, that would be exactly the same thing. Why would I try and repress myself from being attracted to who I'm attracted to? I don't get it. What's age got to do with the idea of, oh, you're allowed to go and pursue this, you're allowed to go and pursue that? It's just, I don't know, it seems really one-sided and really a feels-based argument.
But I think it comes to a time where all these television shows, these movies, these comic books, these video games are really just kind of sending the wrong message to children, because now we're starting to tell children it's okay to do this before they actually really understand what it is that they're doing.
But it's okay for them to show heterosexual relationships because you're okay with heterosexual relationships. See, this is why I prefaced the whole argument beforehand of trying to say that when you argue this way, your prejudice does show. Because if you're arguing that showing relationships before children are ready to experience relationships, then you should take relationships away from every level and every aspect from the child. So no Frozen, no children's aspects where they show mums and dads and things like that, and the idea of wives and husbands, the idea of that type of aspects, falling in love, doing things because you love somebody, and so on and so forth, Aladdin, whatever, Snow White, whatever, those types of things. You should take all of those away because you don't think the kid is ready to understand what relationships are and have been able to explore themselves. That's what you're saying here. But the added aspect is that you're not saying that because you're okay with a heterosexual relationship aspect of it. You just don't like it when people are also shown that there are homosexual relationships, transsexual relationships, bisexual relationships, polyamic relationships. So you don't like all of the things that are not heterosexual. You actually like the heterosexual stuff. You're okay showing kids that, but all the other stuff, you're not. Which means that you're actually against the other stuff, not the relationship aspect of showing kids what's going on. So let's carry on.
I'm not sitting there saying a guy and a girl is what life is meant to be, right? I'm not superficial. I'm not arrogant. I feel like love is love. You can't help who you fall in love with, right? Whether it's someone from the opposite sex, whether it's someone from the same sex, different race, opposite race, it doesn't matter. If you are in love with someone, it shouldn't matter what their gender is, what their race is, what their sexuality is, what their weight, their height. None of that matters. You can't help who you fall in love with. But I also feel that children are affected very, very early on. You can see kids they grow up in a horrible, violent household, and look how that kind of messes up their mind. Studies show that kids that experience trauma and stuff, it affects them later on. So if they're growing up and they're seeing, lesbians and gays on Disney Plus, they're already conditioning themselves that, hey, I want to suck dick.
I don't understand how in one breath you say, oh, I want everybody to love who they want to love. And then in the next breath, you completely and utterly, and I mean this, utterly misrepresent the studies to then try and say a non sequitur of that study then points to the fact of, oh, well, if you show them lesbians and gays, they're going to be more likely to become lesbian and gay. There are no studies to show that. You are literally thinking this on your own free will. If you have kids that are shown that it's okay to be gay, bi, or lesbian, or transsexual, then more and more people will understand who they are and who they love, rather than being forced by only thinking that societal standards are man and woman must love each other. Because as you quite rightly said, Robert, that love is love and you can't help who you fall for. So why are you trying to push the idea that if you show lesbians and gays on TV, that there are going to be more lesbians and gays on TV? Let me do an analogy for you. Let's say that the people that were pushing the idea of violence in video games, music, and comic books causes more violence in real life. Hopefully, you would say that's absurd. How could that happen? And I will leave the analogy there.
And that might be an extreme statement, and I'm just really kind of like trying to joke around with a very, very serious topic. But I do feel like it comes a point where I know if I was a father, and like I said, I've dated people with kids that I feel that like I was a father figure to them. And it makes me a little uncomfortable knowing that they have this out in the world, that they can see this at any given time, and they're not really given a choice because it's always in their face. It's always in their face.
They don't have a choice because it's in their face. Your argument is that if it keeps on going into their face, that they can or should be or whatever, be gay, lesbian, or transsexual, that their kids are always going to choose that they're going to be forced to choose it. I bring you back to my previous analogy. If you honestly believe that, then you then believe that violence comes and stems from video games, music, and your comic books. I didn't think you thought that. So why push it on this way? Think about your prejudice when you're saying this.
Now, if I had a daughter and she was like 15, 16, and she said, Dad, you know, I'm really attracted to girls, you know, like I'm sorry. And I'll be like, there's nothing to be sorry about. You love who you love, and I love you for who you are. But when you get to the age of 10 and 11 and you automatically think you're gay or you want to get a sex change and all this stuff.
Right, psychological studies show that when you start getting to the age of 10 to about 12, you start going on self-exploration of trying to find out who you are. That's where your sexual appetites come from. That's where your identity comes from. That's where your expressions start to come from. That's where your identity is manifesting. Your self-identity is manifesting. How you're going to express yourself comes from around about those ages. Between 10 and 12 is where you start, and it goes all the way through into about 18, 21. That's generally where your self-exploration comes from and starts from until, generally. So when you say, oh, I don't understand why 10s and 11-year-olds are coming out at this and saying who they are and what they are, it's because that's who they are and what they are. They've been exploring. They see what fits them, how they feel when they see two gay couples being with each other than they do to heterosexual couples. You know, from when you were younger, if you saw two gay couples, you would be, oh, that's cute, but, you know, not really attractive. That's not really to me. And then going, oh, I really like this heterosexual couple. I wish I had something similar. That point of being that way happens when you're young. So when you say, oh, I don't understand that when you're 10 or 11, I don't understand how you could find out these things. ask yourself, when did you find out that you were straight? When did you know that you were straight? Because I can guarantee you that mine was between 10 and 11. Maybe 12 at the absolute max. But between 10 and 11, I was still in primary school, obviously. Same as most people, I presume.
I think it's way too early to make a logical decision on your own. And I think this is really sending the wrong messages.
Wait, so you're trying to say that you think that it's wrong for somebody to come out and say, I think I'm this because I identify more with a gay couple or the transsexual couple than I do with a heterosexual couple? You think it's wrong for kids to come out and say that because they're not logically able to or capable to? Is that really what your argument is here?
To these children. And then that doesn't even talk about the underlying message of, or the underlying problem of, why are we always taking these characters and changing them just to appease one side?
Because every other character is straight and cis. That's why. That doesn't mean that, I want equal representation or anything else like that. It's to point out that there are differences. Society is evolving. Society is changing. We are understanding more from a psychological aspect, more from a neurology. That we'll do that because I can't speak apparently. More from a neurological aspect as well. We're understanding more that's going on with the human mind, the human psyche, expression, how things happen, sociology, and general science overall. How people are acting and reacting to these stimulus of being able to find out who they are. But your prejudice is saying that, kids can't understand who they are. But I bet you if somebody said when they were 10 or 11 to you that they like the opposite sex, you wouldn't bat a fucking eyelid. But if somebody says, I think I like boys when they're 10 or 11, or if I like girls and they're a girl when they're 10 or 11, I bet you'd be like, yeah, you don't really know yourself yet. I bet you'd be that parent. I really do.
What about the fans of the other side? Fans that loved Jonathan Kent, loved Jonathan or Kello's son, or Tim Drake, and all these,
but nothing's changed about them. They didn't really have sexual partners, especially Jonathan Kent. So when you say, they really love the characters, there's nothing changed immutably about the character. It's just the expression of who they love. It's just your preconception of what the character is.
liked the way he was being written, and they liked the way he was already portrayed. And then you go in and you're like, oh no, he's bisexual now. If we don't like that, it automatically turns us as a homophobe or something that's negative, and it ain't.
Ask yourself why you dislike it. Because the way that you've explained it is because you think that turning somebody like Jonathan Kent bisexual is going to hurt children into thinking that they may or may not have different sexual expressions or likes than what you do. That's been your whole argument here, Robert.
Yeah, we just like these characters the way they were. Why do you have to change them on us? Like what's next? You're gonna take Bruce Wayne and turn him bisexual or gay?
I tell you what, that would actually make more sense with Batman's on Bruce Wayne's psyche, because his psyche is more about control and philanthropy. So that would actually make quite a lot of sense. But again, I don't think that they would ever change the household franchises of Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, Barry Allen, and so on and so forth, simply because they're established characters that have generations of people that know who they are and know what they like. It would completely destroy the character. But characters like Tim Drake that have only been around for about 10, maybe 15 years, or Jonathan Kent that's only been around about 5 to 10 years, yeah, you can talk about that, about how their expressions have changed. So, yeah, why couldn't you?
I mean, Bruce Wayne, the biggest pussy hound in comic books, other than Matt Murdock, you're just gonna turn him like where do we draw the line? I don't care if you create new characters, but you're taking existing characters that already have lore and you're just changing it just so you can change it to make a statement. Everything nowadays is a fucking statement. Movies, statement. Shows, statement. fucking comic book statement. We can't even fucking enjoy shit anymore without someone trying to make a fucking statement to try to be politically correct and appease a certain side. It's okay to be proud. You can love whoever the fuck you want to love.
Apparently, it's not.
But at what point does the stuff we love, our media, what
Freudian slip here. The media that we love, that I love, my side.
when does that stop being affected to try to appease somebody? This is a very, very sensitive subject, and I don't know how I'm coming across. I'm just talking, and I might be coming across absolutely horrible, and everybody might actually hate me for my opinion. But at the end of the day, it's just something I kind of feel, you know? And if you actually listen to what I'm saying, I'm not saying I'm not against anything.
You are.
I'm just saying, let's just be careful of how much stuff we're just splashing around, because we do have a tendency. We are supposed to be role models for the next generation.
I'll leave it with this point, and then we'll move on to another video. But I'll leave it with this point. How can you be more of a role model than showing all kids that it's okay to love and to be who they are, rather than trying to say that you should only be heterosexual or see heterosexual stuff up to a certain age that somehow you've arbitrarily designed to be the cutoff point? Because I'll be honest with you, Robert, that is what you're saying. And that's really annoying to me. All right, so I'm just going to have a quick read through some of the chat before we move on to the next one. I mean, you're right, actually, Telahim, on that one. He was closer to spoiler, but most normal people that watch something like Teen Titans or something like that would understand the Starfire reference more than spoiler. You'd have to be more into the comic books to understand that. Yeah, just because I'm trying to appeal to... Anyway, carrying on. Good to see you, Mr. Sheffield. It's always good to see you. Nothing wrong in... Yeah, well, the way that it's done on this aspect is that it has a massive, great storyline to it. The Marvel DC way is gay because no longer a character, the character is just gay. Then you haven't read the books. Let's have a look at this one, shall we? So everybody can read it. At Constance Guy, you are coming at this the wrong way. Do you remember the Travis Stock travesty? This guy talking about it is half right. I don't think it's half right at all. Otherwise, you're suggesting that people that are watching or consuming media that have violence in it is going to turn you violent. And if you actually put that down as an argument, I can link you thousands of studies that are saying that you're wrong. That's not the case. But yet, it's interesting how we would say, oh, well, violence definitely can't come through video games and it definitely can't come through this. But apparently watching somebody that likes a particular sexual attraction, that's going to come across as you should like the sexual attraction. Or encourage it more. I don't see the correlation. I don't see how you could say one thing is bad and can't happen, but the same idea is being used somewhere else, but you say that that's correct. It's literally the same idea. This is what the guy is trying to say, I guess. The far left degenerate agenda and kids should be protected from it until they're old enough to understand. So you're saying that showing relationships of heterosexual and homosexual, transsexual people, or interracial, as in interracial or interspecies as different aliens from Mass Effect. Are you saying that that's all wrong and shouldn't be shown to children? Just the idea of it, not actually the sexual explicit stuff, obviously, but the actual, just the idea of it, that should all be wrong to you? Is that correct? I just don't see that. Yeah, Sheffield, I never said that they are fully formed. Actually, no, I said that they start from 11 to 12, from 10 to 11, but don't finish until the mid-20s. So, yeah, right. Hormones don't really kick in until the odent of puberty. Yes, which generally starts for most people between the ages of 10 and 12. Not a good idea to mess with kids' head with regards to sexuality. Okay. They're not talking about saying that somebody's going to treat you as being a different sex, that they're going to force you to be a different gender, that they're going to force you to live to be a different gender. All it is showing the different relationships of it. I don't understand how. Okay, right. Let's go back to this. We've only got about another 20 minutes left, and then we will get on, so to speak. So let's find another video, shall we? A man in his car. How long? 24 minutes. Too long. Okay. Well, you have 80,000, and you're. Let's do this then. Sorry about the ads, everyone. I don't have ad blocker. I don't have enough money for it. So he has his little intro. We're going to skip that.
Oh, man, stuff is getting funnier and funnier. So, Superman is now bisexual.
I understand that he's doing this for a joke, and I get that, right? I do get it. It's a joke, and I get it. But it's really interesting that if people try to say that they're bi or gay, that generally people try to feminize them so much as a derogatory way of trying to say, oh, you're not a man, you're not this. And it's really interesting the way that people try to portray that as in, oh, I'm bisexual now. Okay, you've known me for like 20, 30 years or however long. And because I've apparently now come out as bisexual, everything that I did beforehand with you, watching football, doing all the sports, doing everything, going drinking you under the table, smoking, whatever, all the manly stuff is apparently now completely changed on its head, and now you feminize people because they come out as bisexual. I don't know, man. That sounds very prejudiced towards me.
So, after the last video I did about Venom being gay now, that was about, for those of you that missed out, that was an article about the possibility of Venom being gay in the movie. They took an interview from Andy Serkis and kind of spun it like he might be gay. People were saying I was homophobic over that. Absolutely not. Only thing I was saying is don't fundamentally change a character. So I said, if just...
I don't even want to talk about Venom, right? Because the interview was an opinion piece about how they misunderstood or misinterpreted the interview, where he never said that he was gay, never portrayed him as being gay, and never tried to express him as being gay. But somebody wrote an opinion piece thinking that, well, he might be. And you didn't like that and run your mouth off trying to say that, oh, it's really bad for him to do that. I mean, with the first start of this, where you just laughed at the story to begin with, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Let's try and find out. I'm not going to label you just yet.
Something I didn't remember, please let me know. Plenty of fans actually sent me messages and emails. They were like, yo, actually, they did have them have a baby and have them start to call each other love and darling. And then one of them sent me a clip from an old Spider-Man comic, and I remember this, I actually have it, where Spider-Man and Venom are fighting, and at one point he says, if you want me, here I am. And like So there's this struggle between the symbiote because he wants to be with Spider-Man over Venom. Now, that's one of those things that can be, it's vague. Yeah, it's ambiguous. It's kind of like, okay, well, maybe he just feels a stronger bond with him as a symbiote, but people could also spin it as being gay. Fine. Okay. If fundamentally he was gay, he was gay. I don't have a big problem with that, and I never did. I explained to you guys before. Listen, I started out in bodybuilding, then modeling, then acting. 3 professions that have a huge LGBTQ community. I would have gotten in, if I had a problem, I would have gotten into the wrong 3 industries. My issue is, as a fan of these characters, don't change them fundamentally. And I'm open to being educated if they were originally maybe possibility gay or whatever it is they want to make them now to fit them in with these running narratives that we have going on now.
So, I mean, I didn't realize that this video was going to be talking about Venom and everything else like that, right? But he comes out and he says that, oh, he made a video about Venom not being gay. And then he's starting to correct himself that, oh, well, maybe he might be, maybe he won't be, maybe it is ambiguous. As far as I'm aware, the symbiote that is Venom, obviously Venom is with Eddie Brock, but the symbiote itself that we know as Venom only really went with men. I think Carnage's one went with, not to actually merge with, but went with women in the way of being able to transfer itself to Carnage. I can't remember his name, James something or other. So yeah, I mean, there's lots that you could talk about with the Venom incident where he could or might be gay or anything else like that, and preferring the protagonists and male protagonists all the time. So you could argue that point. But it's interesting. Oh, I've been in this community, so how can I be gay? Or how can I be homophobic? Or how can I be this phobic? It's just like, because of the way you're talking, dude. But that's carry on. Let's see.
What is started? The first character I think that I heard about being gay, that they changed gay, was Iceman. Now, Iceman, I think, was out for what, 30, 40 years before they did that with him? So fundamentally, he wasn't. That's all.
No, that's not true. He never really had any love interests in that 30 years. That's the reason why they were able to change it. Now, when I say not really, as I said before, there are 1 or 2, but it was a very minor aspect of the story.
I'm saying, they did it with Colossus. He was out several years before they ever did it. Eventually, I don't know who else. They just did it with Robin. Now they're doing it with Superman's son.
So I want to point out again that when people say, oh, they're doing it to all of the characters, he named 4. Now, again, I'm not trying to say, oh, you need to have a list ready to go. I'm not trying to say that. But when you're trying to say that, oh, they're doing it to every character, surely you should have a list longer than 4 for every character, right? Or is that just your perception of what's being changed here, rather than it actually being? Again, with Iceman, minor relationships where he may or may not have been with this or may or not have been with that. As he's quite rightly said, Colossus, as he quite rightly said, was out before he was officially out. So, yeah. With Tim Drake, again, never actually really went with anybody. Again, it was implied that he was close to a couple of people. More so for the normal audience, Starfire from Team Titans, but as I apparently need to now point out from Telahim, also spoiler as well, but in general, it's a case of they normally have a storyline for it and the reasons and why. So I don't really get why it's such an issue. So I do like the way that we have literally the same title. That's kind of cool. I like that.
And my whole thing is, like, I just don't. I know why they're doing it, but why? I don't know. Why piss the public off? Like,
That implies that the public really take to heart what the sexual characteristics of a character is or might be, rather than the storylines. Remember before when we were talking with, or about rather, the Lotus Eaters podcast, about their first instance, and they were talking about universalism. How and why should people not be able to pick up a comic book and be able to just like the character and identify with the characteristics that's on the page? Why can't they do that? Oh, he's gay now? Fuck that. I don't identify with that, so I'm not going to be liking this story anymore. Almost like they defeat their argument before it even starts. Let's carry on because we haven't got too much longer left.
I'm not hugely attached to any of these characters like that.
No, of course not. That's why you're making a video.
Their entertainment, but I do understand that people are. People are very. They see them. They see themselves in these characters. So when you change these characters, fundamentally, you mess with these people. Like, and I had fans write me that are gay, and if you go to that video, you'll see in the comment section there's gay fans that's like, yo, man, you ain't homophobic. We already know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Look, I got LGBTQ family members and friends and coworkers. Look, I came into YouTube as an actor. I was an actor before YouTube. You see what I'm saying? Like, but people always try to spin your words. People ask me, what do I need to know? And I never tell people this about being a YouTuber. You want to be a YouTuber, you got to remember, no matter what you do, someone, some community, some subculture will take your words and spin them for a narrative that suits their movement. You will be attacked for nothing. You could save a child in the middle of the road. You will be ridiculed.
Okay, you're boring
Some that are. I would argue the majority are saying, what are you doing? Why don't you just make a new character, make him gay, and promote him?
Because Jonathan Kent is a new character, or a newish character, that doesn't really have too much of a lore of who he likes, at least, flushed out. So I don't get that argument. Oh, make a new character. Okay. What about a character that's his or their sexual preferences or politications aren't actually known to the world? Why not actually, explore that and do a storyline that shows how and why that happened? I don't get that.
Why don't you just do that? Why are you switching these characters up and causing this uproar? Is it for the uproar? Is it for the news? Is it for all that stuff?
Well, obviously, partly it will be. Every news and every sort of advertisement is going to boost the views, whether it's hate views, love views, or just people that are trying to find out. So, yeah, of course, that in general, advertising is always good, and the idea of a retcon or the idea of expanding on a character or changing a character slightly is always interesting. Always gets people to click. That's the reason why you're doing a video about it. That's the reason why I'm doing a video about it. So when you try and say you're being honest, well, let's be honest about it.
Like, I don't get it. I don't get it, man. But anyway, so it says here, see, now they didn't do it with Clark Kent, and they didn't do it with Bruce Wayne. There's it's arguable between him and Dick Grayson way back when, because there's that one that people always use. You know what I'm talking about? There's that one thing of them in bed together where it's kind of like, why were they in bed together? I don't know. I mean, he's his ward, like he's his son. Son and dad sometimes sleep in the bed together. I don't know, you know what I mean? But, like, why did they take super popular characters and then switch on the dime? Like,
it's really interesting how you start off with a point. Oh, well, they're not using Bruce Wayne. They're not using Clark Kent, but they're using super popular characters. What? Jonathan Kent's super popular, is he? Is he more popular than Clark Kent? Is he more popular than Bruce Wayne? Is he more popular than Tim Drake? I wonder.
Like, they don't need to do that. They can make a brand new character. Case in point. When Miles Morales was made, I wasn't excited about it at all. I wasn't excited about it. I thought,
Shocked.
okay, cool. We got, got a Black Spider-Man, whatever. However, when Spawn was created, he was an original black character. I immediately gravitated to that. And I think that's what we should do for the rest of it. People that don't agree. Okay. But I think there's more that agree with me than don't agree with me, And that goes for people in the LGBTQ community. And it's funny too? Like, I make these videos and then people attack me over it. Every single LGBTQ family member that has seen my videos and friends and co-workers never give me shit about it. They understand exactly what I'm talking about. They don't try to spit it. Oh, you're homophobic. They don't do that because they know what I said. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. But it says here, DC is making a bold statement with its new Superman by revealing that he is bisexual in an upcoming issue. For those unfamiliar with the current continuity of DC Comics, there are currently two heroes operating as Superman. One is Clark Kent, who originally debuted in the comic books in 1938. The second is his and Lois's son, John Kent, the knockoff.
It's really interesting. I let him ramble because I really wanted to show you the fact that he's rambling. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have knowledge of the comic books. He obviously does, and he obviously likes the characters. I'm not saying that. But it's really interesting in the fact of he comes at it from a point of, oh, these characters are super popular, and why shouldn't they create their own characters from it? It's like, well, they didn't use Clark. They're using this. Oh, they're using the knockoff Superman. Like, yeah, because he's being the Superman that's looking after the world, as Telahim pointed out in the chat, because Superman's on World fighting at the minute. So he's not on the planet. So Jonathan Kent is taking up that mantle as Superman while he's not there. Again, storyline flushed out, reason behind it.
I mean, they don't want to play around with Clark himself or Bruce himself because they know the tidal wave that'll come from everybody, from the majority of the public. But when you test it out on the side characters, maybe they could fit in later on a more prominent character.
Or maybe it's because that narratively, because Jonathan Kent hasn't expressed any sort of sexual orientation yet, that it would be a case of him being able to understand and find himself as being a 17-year-old boy, as going out and maybe being interested in both men and women. Maybe. Where Clark Kent is in his 40s, 50s, or whatever he is in the actual comic books now. I cannot remember, but quite a middle-aged man, same as Bruce Wayne is. They're very set in their ways. It'd be very hard to sell a character that is of a particular age coming out as something when they've already had established law of being a particular orientation. It wouldn't fit narratively. It wouldn't fit as in trying to fit as a gimmick, which is why that they have done it narratively with Jonathan Kent, because it fits or can fit.
John spent some time as Superboy before his father recently convinced him to take on the title of Superman as well. In an upcoming issue, John will take after his father when he begins a relationship with an up-and-coming journalist named Jay Nakamura. That sounds familiar. Like I've heard that before in another character. Nakamura. According to... No, that's the wrestler. That's the wrestler.
Yeah.
Anyway, according to an announcement from DC Comics, the two initially became friends when John was making an attempt at having a secret identity as a high school student. However, in Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 5, the two will share a kiss after Superman becomes mentally and physically burnt out from trying to save everyone he possibly can. I've always said everyone needs heroes and everyone deserves to see themselves in their heroes. And I'm very grateful DC and Warner Bros. Share this idea, said writer Don Taylor. Superman's symbol has always stood for hope, truth, and justice, and the American way. Let's not forget that. They changed that recently. Can't be for American way, it's got to be for justice for all.
Yes, because everybody in America deserves justice, the same as everybody in a worldwide franchise deserves justice in their iteration of justice. That's why it's been taken out. It is to attract a worldwide audience. But anyway, carrying on.
I get it. Today, that symbol represents something more. Today, more people can see themselves in the most powerful superheroes in comics. Artist John Timms added, and I'm incredibly honored to be working beside Tom on Superman Son of Kal-El series, showing John Kent tackling his complex modern life while saving the world from its greatest threats and villains and menaces. As the New York Times notes, the movie.
My God, dude. I know that you're just doing the news, but where's your goddamn opinion to it? It's 10 minutes into the goddamn video, and you've basically said that you don't like it because, don't change established super characters because they're super popular, and Jonathan Kent isn't super popular. So, Jesus Christ. And you've got 80,000 views.
This move marks a significant step for diversity in comics, which struggled in an early day as critics and politicians linked their readership to delinquency. I don't know if this is a major move. I mean, they already did it with Iceman. They already did it with Iceman. They did it with
Colossus. Tim Drake.
Iceman, Colossus.
Go
Venom.
on. Oh, so he is now gay.
Venom was arguably since the beginning. So now, and, Wolverine's son. Wolverine's son was always like that, right?
Yes, so. He was. Yes, he was always bisexual.
Draken, whatever his name is. Yeah. But they did it with Wolverine. They hinted at it later. Wolverine's been out for decades.
They never hinted at it.
And they had that where he was saying something about can it be both? Something about having a man and a woman.
Yeah, but that wasn't about. Anyway, carry on. That wasn't about him.
Hey, it is what it is. I don't collect comics anymore. I was a huge fan when I was a kid up into my early 20s.
So this whole video was a waste of fucking time. The whole video was a waste of time. Oh my God, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. You're not worth it. I'm going. Stop. Just stop. No, not doing it anymore. It was a waste of time. Waste of time. I fucked it up. Picked the wrong video. Right, let's have a quick look at chat, see how chat's going, and then I'll be getting off. Hopefully, if anybody's still here, no, everybody's left. Great. All right, so nobody would want to come on and put their point of view across or anything else like that, so that's good. Not a good idea to mess with kids' head with regards to sexuality. That's not what happened. Even with the Tavistock affair, that was not a case of trying to mess with a kid's sexuality. It was actually messing with the identity of the kid, not just the sexuality or the sexual orientation. It was the whole idea of the identity of the child, and grown up as that different identity and corrected when the child wanted to be a different identity and how it fucked up the kid. But, nobody knows these things, apparently. This is why the far left want to go after underage children, because they don't understand and putting ideas in the head. This is like why uni students think words are violence. I would expect more from you, Principal. I'd expect more from you, my friend. Remember that girl who is now a meme? Yeah, that has nothing to do with this comic book, though. How do you even know that? Whoa. Recommended read, Blank Slate, Steven Pinker. Gotta go. Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, I understand how much. What do you gotta do? Poo toilet. Yeah. Take care, Loafer. I know that you might watch this back later on, but take care, mate. Well, take the Iceman. Jean Grey brainwashed him to be gay and became the worst character DC Marvel. Wow. That's not what happened. Jean Grey did not brainwash him to be gay. Wow. Okay, carrying on. Hello, Jude. How are you? How are you? Personally, I'm tired of this sexuality directed at children. In one breath, they say this has nothing to do with sexuality, but in the next breath, every image you see is a man on top of a man. Really? You really think that in the images that were shown for Superman, that there is men on top of men? You don't think it's the same as them passionately kissing, like, say, heterosexual couples, or holding hands like heterosexual couples? Same as in Disney Plus and things like that, doing it that way. You think showing relationships of gay, lesbian, and transsexual relationships is going into the children and is being directed at the children to try and change them? I really want somebody to come in and actually talk to me about this, about how they feel like that. I'll tell you what, in the description box down below, and I will pin it as a pinned comment, I will link to my Twitter, where if you want to, come and follow me, blah, blah, blah. If you don't, whatever, don't care. But if you want to talk to me, my DMs are open, and we will hopefully be able to put forward the idea of you coming over and talking to me on a stream like this, where I won't shout over you, you won't shout over me, and we can talk about why you think that this is a bad issue. And I will also obviously do it face to face as well. I won't hide behind a monicum of my icon or anything. So if you want to do that, please get in contact with my Twitter that I will link down below. Other than that, I just don't understand how this is a big goddamn deal. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, however you might identify, I will be leaving now. Thank you very much for the people that have already come to watch this live. And I look forward from all of the comments that may or may not watch this at a later date. Thank you very much, ladies and gents. Bye-bye for now. Take care. Farewell. And see you again real soon. Bye-bye.